It's hard to believe, but 2 years ago, I dropped my daughter off at school and ran a mile, and I stopped 3 times just to catch my breath. This year, I ran the San Diego Rock and Roll Marathon. Hey, we're here in sunny San Diego because tomorrow is marathon day. That's right, I'm gonna be running my very first marathon my entire life. I think first thing I gotta do is go pick up the bib, so let's do that. After nearly a week of the DOMs, I also had several amazing DOLs, delayed onset life lessons. And I wanted to share with you my incredible top 5 after running my first marathon. They may not change your life, but then again, they could. Lesson number 1, you are stronger than you think. As a first-time marathoner, not really knowing where to begin, I downloaded a typical 16-week training plan. And not once during that entire time did I run 26.2 miles in a single session. To me, that made absolutely no sense. The idea is that the energy of race day, the spectators, the unique experience, all of that would help carry me to the finish line. All I could hear was the phrase, trust me. Having lived in New York, anyone who says trust me is not to be trusted. Yet, that's exactly what happened. I made it to the finish line. I've heard it said that mile 18 is when the marathon really begins. I agree, but in addition, I think that's where your training ends and your courage begins. Yes, you'll suffer like you've never suffered before in those last 8.2 miles. Whether it's the distance, the time, or the amount of effort, you will surpass your limit by more than you ever thought possible. Lesson number 2, the only person you're competing with is yourself. Despite there being thousands of other runners next to you, you really are running your own race. I learned this when men and women who appeared older than I was or had visibly higher BMIs passed me by. I felt so embarrassed that my first instinct was to push a little harder because I thought everyone was laughing at me. All I could think was, I can't let this happen. How embarrassing. Early in the race, when I felt strong, I could pick up the pace, but toward the end, when I had nothing left, it was impossible. When the reality finally set in that I wasn't as fit as the grandmother next to me, I realized that my ego was controlling my thoughts and actions. The truth was that nobody even noticed it, and if they did, they didn't give a crap. 26.2 miles is long enough that it humbles everyone. So anyone who judges you for getting past or for walking haven't really gone deep enough into themselves to understand that in that moment, you've reached your limit and are coming to terms with your ego. Those limits are unique to everyone and are based on so many factors, both in and out of your control. Ultimately, it's about racing yourself, seeing how far you can push your own body and your own mind. Lesson number 3, taking a break is not quitting. What I mean is that when things get really difficult and all you want to do is quit, it's completely okay to stop to catch your breath. Stopping does not make you a quitter and definitely not a loser. In fact, it can make you a winner. If you don't know who she is already, look up Sifan Hassan. In her debut marathon in London last year, she stopped to stretch her legs in the middle of the race, and she still won. Sometimes we need to pause, gather ourselves, and reassess the situation before we can push onward. I always felt a lot of guilt when I stopped doing something. My point of view was that because I stopped writing, I'm not a writer anymore. I'm a quitter. It's such an all or nothing way to think, but more importantly, it's completely ignoring the process of going from where you are to where you want to be. Running a marathon has taught me that when it gets really hard in life, when your body and your mind stop listening and want to do their own thing, it's okay to take a break. Stopping to rest isn't failure, it's just a break. And it's not final, it's simply part of the process of reaching your goal. Lesson number 4, have a plan, but be ready to throw it out. I have 3 goals today for this marathon. First goal is try to run sub 4. Maybe it's doable, maybe it's not. Second goal is to finish around 4:15, 4:20. Goal C will be to just finish. Since it is my first marathon, I don't really care about getting a PB. Let's give it a try and see what happens. I'll see you at the finish line. It's important to have a plan so you can feel like you're prepared and you can focus on the execution. But the marathon is such a long distance that anything can happen, which is why people say it's a lot like life. And those who can adapt the quickest are the ones who can get back on course sooner. At the start of the race, I planned to listen to my salsa music as I had during my training runs, but with so many cell signals trying to connect, I couldn't set up my favorite radio station. The show is called Alma del Barrio, in case you were wondering. So I ended up running the entire race without any music or headphones, which meant I got the full effect of the crowd cheering and screaming, which gave me extra energy at the times I needed. Just past mile 8. Still feel pretty good. I'm only a third of the way there. I also planned to film myself crossing the finish line for this video, but the last 8 miles were so brutal, I couldn't even bother to get my camera out. Kind of 2/3 of the way there. I'm dying. I'm way off pace. Let's just see if I can finish today. I envisioned myself crossing the finish line with my arms raised and a big smile on my face, but in the end, I didn't care about any of that. All I wanted to do was finish. Now my race vlog has turned into a video of things I've learned, which I think is okay because there are plenty of other race vlogs out there. But doll videos, not so much. Changing your plans may be exactly what you need to reach your goal. Finally, lesson number 5, which for me I think is the most important lesson and the most personal. You have to be willing to let go of your old self in order to grow into your new self. Got it, I'm ready to go. Now, it's been said that running a marathon is the bridge between the person you are and the person you'd like to be. So when I crossed the finish line, I wondered why I didn't feel like a completely different or changed person. I didn't feel that enlightened moment of joy that I had expected. All I wanted to do was sit down and end the pain in my legs. To be honest, the whole thing felt sort of anticlimactic. The buildup of the marathon felt way more exciting than crossing the finish line. But about 3 days after the race, I got the lesson. We all have old ways of thinking that prevent us from becoming the person we want to be. Despite knowing that, we tend to stick to the familiar because it's comfortable and safe. The person that we want to become is unknown, and that can be scary. For me, it's the inability to be proud of myself. Growing up, my achievements, big or small, were treated as a matter of fact. Or worse, I was told that I could do a little better next time. Before the race, everyone I spoke to was really encouraging and excited for me because they knew it was a big deal, but I couldn't see it that way. The new me is a person who lives fully and is unafraid to express joy at joyful times and share my happiness with others. The more excited I become, the more excited those around me become. Because I'm convinced that what you put out there is what you get more of. And I like having joy and happiness in my life. And this medal, my very first marathon finisher medal from San Diego, will remind me of that very important lesson. Thank you guys so much for watching to the end. I know I talk about shoes most of the time, but learning things about myself is the real reason I choose to run and write. And let me know down in the comments any dolls you get after running a marathon. Thanks again. Ride or run, let's get it done.